All right, Trump and Clinton are battling it out. Meanwhile, Libertarian presidential nominee Gary Johnson is rising in the polls. Now he's at 9% of support. Now the Presidential Debate Commission is telling venues holding the debates, prepare for a possible third-party candidate. Get that third podium ready. Can he make it to the 15% threshold to make it on the big stage? Former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson joins us right now. Governor, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely, Maria. Thank you for having me on.
We have been going through the economic plans of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Make the case. Why should viewers vote for you?
Well, certainty, first and foremost. Myself and Bill Weld, both Republican governors serving in heavily Democratic states, both of us didn't raise taxes a penny. I think when it came to regulation, there was certainty when it came to regulation. Regulations were going to get better, not worse. And I was able to cut taxes 14 times. Bill Weld was able to cut taxes 21 times. I really think when it comes to economics, the certainty that there will be lower taxes, corporate taxes, income tax, simplifying the tax system. Look, I'm not getting elected king or dictator here. I'm getting elected president. So whatever comes out of Congress, I either get to support or I either get to veto. But if I were king, if I could wave a magic wand, I would eliminate corporate tax. I would eliminate income tax. Who pays for corporate tax? You and I do. If with a zero corporate tax rate, and we could replace those taxes with one federal consumption tax, but if there were a zero corporate tax rate, I believe tens of millions of jobs would get created in this country. Why would you start up or grow a business anywhere in the world other than the United States with a zero corporate tax rate? I also think that we would issue pink slips to 80% of Washington lobbyists because they're there to garner tax favor.
Right. So you think that a consumption tax in place of a corporate tax and in place of an individual income tax will raise enough revenue for you to actually get the job done? I mean, what kind of revenue raise are you talking about by eliminating those two taxes and replacing it with a consumption tax?
Well, I ask everyone to look at the fair tax as a template for how you can dot the I's and cross the T's when it comes to implementing one federal consumption tax. But it's designed to be revenue neutral. Bill Weld and I are pledging in our first 100 days to submit a balanced budget to Congress. And balanced budget to Congress, that has to include the entitlements, reform to the entitlements, Medicaid and Medicare, ensuring that there still is a safety net. It would be reforming Social Security, not cutting Social Security, but raising the retirement age. You could have a very fair means testing when it comes to Social Security. Right. How much money did you pay in? How much money should you get back given a certain level of income? And then military spending. The Pentagon itself says that we could reduce U.S. bases by 20%, and yet there's not the political will to do that. Our heads are in the sand over all of this. There's a fiscal crisis out there looming if we don't cut spending to go along with the equation.
Well, look, I'm glad you mentioned the entitlements. You're the only one talking about entitlements, and that takes real courage, so thank you for that. But let me ask you this. You said you want to cut spending, including military spending. How does that jive with what we're going through right now in terms of the new threats we all face from ISIS and from other terrorists around the world? You want to cut military spending at a time that perhaps we need to be raising it.
Well, as I pointed out just a minute ago, the Pentagon itself says that we could eliminate 20% of U.S. bases. That's coming from the Pentagon, Maria. I'd like to point out a poll that came out a couple of weeks ago among active military personnel and who they favored to be president. They favored me above Trump and Clinton to be president. I think we have to have an impenetrable national defense. But I think our support of regime changes in other countries has resulted in a world that's less safe, not more safe. And when you talk about ISIS, I'm afraid that a lot of that is unintended consequence, not intentional, of our support of these regime changes, starting with Iraq, Syria, Libya.
Yeah, well, look, we didn't support Egypt. And as a result, we alienated a lot of our friends in the Middle East. Let me ask you to tell our viewers right now, because we talk a little about the economy, and I want to get your take on these tax plans from your competitors in a minute. But tell our viewers your plan to keep the country safe. What's your plan for national security?
Well, that we involve Congress in a declaration of war, that we do have an impenetrable national defense. But look, you can't make this up. Obama and Hillary go in and support the opposition in both Libya and Syria. The opposition is aligned with ISIS. We arm the opposition. The opposition gets beaten. The arms end up in ISIS hands. It seems to me that we're dealing with the consequences of what we have done to this point. So I don't want to support or get involved in regime change. I think the country is fed up with seeing us involved in military action. Right. I would withdraw from Afghanistan tomorrow. Yeah. Look, are we going to be there for 20 years? Are we going to be there forever? And initially, I did support going into Afghanistan. That was about getting Osama bin Laden, al-Qaeda. I think after 7 months, we clearly got al-Qaeda, and we could have left our options open to come back in and get Osama bin Laden.
Let me switch gears and ask you about the two tax plans that we're talking about today, Clinton and Trump. You know, Hillary Clinton has talked a lot about raising taxes on the rich. She's got this 5% surcharge, anybody with $5 million, and that takes their tax rate, this is just a federal tax rate, up to 43.6%. She has not talked about lower incomes, so I want to just bring our viewers' attention to something. She's got 7 brackets here, and one bracket, let's say, I don't know, I'm just going to pick out one, $91,000 to $190,000. So if you're an individual and you make $91,000 to $190,000, your effective tax rate on a federal level will be 28%. 28%, add on state tax, which in New York is 10%. That takes you to 38%. Add on 3.5% if you're in New York City or any city, that's another 3.5%. And, of course, Obamacare is another 3.5%. So you're talking about a tax rate effectively 44% of your money going to the government if you make $91,000 to $190,000. Do you think that's going to be a job creator?
I don't think it's going to be a job creator in any way whatsoever. It sounds like taxes are going to go up, you know, to the tune of $1.5 trillion, and it's going to be more complicated to file your taxes. Look, with Hillary, government is the solution to everything. Government is going to grow, and I just don't believe in that at all. I believe that leaving money in my pocket allows me to make choices in my life with that money, as opposed to government knowing best. Yeah, well, that certainly is the argument. Bigger government or smaller government? Governor, good to see you. Thanks so much for weighing in. We'll be watching the developments. All right. Thanks, Maria.
Gary Johnson.